Welcome to Forbidden Planet 42, celebrating 42 glorious years of the Forbidden Planet store in London. And on this session, we're privileged to be joined by a man whose career is hotwired into the Forbidden Planet mindset, the co-creator of Spaced, the star of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, one of the few actors to achieve the holy grail of nerddom of appearing in Doctor Who, Star Wars and Star Trek. And of course, he also co-wrote Star Trek Beyond. And among many, many other things, currently starring as Benji Dunn in the Mission Impossible series, Mr. Simon Pegg. Thanks for joining us today, mate.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Thank you. And when did you first become aware of Forbidden Planet?
I can tell you exactly when it was. Literally exactly when. It was June the 19th, 1983. And
I love the specificity of that, mate.
The reason I know is it was because I traveled up to London to see Return of the Jedi for the first time from Gloucestershire. And I saw it at the Dominion, Tottenham Court Road. And there was a souvenir when the Dominion was a cinema, it was a proper kind of event cinema. And there was a sort of souvenir program. This was the month it was released. And in the souvenir program were adverts for Forbidden Planet. And I remember there was like a dinosaur walking across the road or something. This is my 13-year-old boy brain trying to recall this. But I just remember thinking, oh, wow, that's like, I bought all my Star Wars figures from, Asda and Debenhams. And then there was this shop that sold just that stuff, and it was like discovering an Aladdin's cave. And I didn't get to go in on that trip, which was disappointing to say the least. But that was when I realized that such a magical kingdom existed.
Fantastic. I love it. And of course, subsequently, you ended up being one of our popular signings at the store and whatnot. Can you remember that experience?
Yeah, I've done a few signings there actually.
Yeah.
And, that kind of moment always feels like a sort of the completion of a circle, and I have a lot of these that happen in my life when something that's been meaningful to me as a child has sort of come back in my adult life and sort of completed a circle. And from looking at that magazine in 1983 to sitting down or being backstage at Forbidden Planet, in the storeroom.
Right on, yes.
All the stuff all stocked up. And
the gloriously well-appointed storeroom.
Yeah. Yeah. And then going out into the main shop and sitting there and meeting the fans was, it was a real moment. I remember when I was a kid going to meet Tom Baker in Merritt's newsagent in Gloucester, and he signed my Talons of Wang Chang novel. And
good choice.
He signed it to Simon 8 from Tom Baker 888.
I love it.
I wish I still had it. I think I lost it. But knowing that feeling of, and I lined up to meet, some guy in a very bad Darth Vader costume at a toy shop in Gloucester. I know that feeling of lining up to meet someone and having that sort of those few moments with them, trying to make an impression, and so to be there and be in Forbidden Planet, where I know all those people are going to be very, very clued up as to what they're into. It was special.
Yeah, no, and I mean, of course, so your signings are some of the most popular we've ever done. I think the thing with your career is like I was saying in the intro. I mean, I can't think of anybody who's the breadth of their career, touches so many Forbidden Planet buttons across the way. I mean, you're a big fan yourself, but like a lot of what you've done, beginning with Spaced, is such kind of pure distilled Forbidden Planet viewing.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I feel like I've made something of a rod for my own back, because I will often walk past Forbidden Planet and not be able to come in, because I know that if I do come in, then I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time, with great people saying hi, but that does take up a certain amount of time. And if I'm
absolutely,
and also I don't want people to think that I'm walking in there because I'm like, hey, it's me from Star Trek and Doctor Who and Star Wars and all these things. I want to go in there and spend some time, looking at everything and and not feel self-conscious. That is impossible for me to do. So it's one of the very few downsides of having worked in so many genres, that it limits my Forbidden Planet time.
Yeah. No, I feel for you. I guess that's when you need a Mission Impossible like mask reveal for real, right?
Yeah. Except I don't do the reveal until I get home. I could I could just go in there
exactly.
as a Commodore Garden comic book fan, and when I get home, just tear it off.
Right on. Speaking of those, I saw that awesome Variety story the other day about where they listed I think it was the top 15 Mission Impossible mask reveals, and 3 of those are you. So how does that feel? That must feel great, to be on that list.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I remember going to see the first Mission Impossible in '96, I think it was, and never, in the same way that I went to see Star Trek and Star Wars and never knew that I would one day be part of that, that sort of that world, that universe. And it's pretty incredible. And I'm really happy because Christopher McQuarrie, when we were doing Ghost Protocol, there was a sequence in the original script where Benji had a mask pull, because he goes on about wanting to do masks and talking about masks in Ghost Protocol. And then there was a payoff. And McHugh kind of, when he came in to rewrite the end of Ghost Protocol, he got rid of that scene. And I was really disappointed. And then he explained to me why. And as a writer, I kind of was like, yeah, okay, I guess I understand that. And he said, don't worry, it's a long game. And he really did play that long game. Even in Rogue Nation, the mask pull that I do in that is a sort of hypothetical one. It's a what if moment. It's not real. So I actually the character waits for 2 whole movies before he gets to do it. And so when he finally does pull that mask off at the beginning of Fallout, when he's Wolf Blitzer, it's like a real yay moment,
I mean, the Wolf Blitzer reveal is a great one. So that must have been deeply satisfying. And I take it you must have been shooting on the set with Wolf Blitzer, right? Is that the way you set those things up? So
Wolf came over to the UK, and we set him up in his own little CNN newsroom, and he's a lovely guy.
Was he into it? I presume he was. He must have been very flattered, totally. I imagine. Yeah,
this was all at the beginning of the sort of Trump stuff, and it was just at the very beginning of the craziness that's ensued. And talking to him about that was really interesting. But what McHugh does there is very clever, because he sets up this sort of payoff really to Benji's little arc when it comes to masks, and then so you think it's done. So when the one happens when Henry rips off, it's a bonus one, and you don't expect it, which is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I realise there's probably very little you can say at the moment. What's the status with the filming on the next 2? How's that going at the moment? With is it just COVID and whatnot?
Well, it's all sort of the gears are starting to the wheels are starting to turn again, and I have to go in for whenever I go into the studio. I fill in forms. I have like 3 COVID tests a week, and they're just there's a big spreadsheet where everybody's whereabouts and when they're in is recorded, so that if anyone does test positive, we can easily track and trace everyone they've been in contact with. They're just being very diligent about it, and we're due to start shooting again in September on location in Norway, and we'll just take it very carefully, make sure everyone's kept isolated and be as safe as we can.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait. I'm a man of a certain age. So when I was a kid, I grew up, the big transition for me was being a Star Trek fan and then watching Leonard Nimoy transfer over into being Paris in Mission Impossible. That was like, fanboy crossover heaven when I was a kid. So I've seen hours and hours of hardcore original Mission Impossible. And I think what you guys have achieved with the movies is just great, to come into on the 3rd one and then to become such an integral part of it. And to have a British guy who's in the middle of it all, like yourself, I went through that era where for 20, 25 years, British dudes turned up in Hollywood movies to be the sneering bad guy or the coward, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So to have you, the resourceful, heroic guy, that's got to feel great.
It's great. And I think it kind of coincided with with Ghost Protocol, when it became about the team again. Mission Impossible was always about the team. You know, it was about how this group of super spies operated together, and you know, with Ethan obviously still at in the forefront, but that group dynamic has become what really fundamentalizes the films, and that's really fun.
Yeah, I hear. I think that's exactly right. As a fan, you know, that's what I feel about it.
Yeah.
So you were lucky enough to work on a massively underrated film, I think, with a phenomenal director. One of my favorite ever directors is Burke and Hare with John Landis.
Yeah.
So how did you find the experience of working with him? How was he?
Well, you know, having been a huge fan of American Wealth in London, and well, a lot of John's movies, you know, Animal House and Blues Brothers and Trading Places, and having met John early on after Shaun of the Dead, you know, he was very supportive of us, along with Joe Dante, and you know, that era of filmmaker, that type of filmmaker. It was a real sort of treat for Edgar and I to meet, and yeah, it was crazy. John is a force of nature, you know. He's irascible and loud, and it doesn't take any prisoners, you know. He's deeply inappropriate, but never with any amount of malice involved, you know. He's just sort of, he just walks it like he talks it, and it was it was it was an interesting experience, you know.
Yeah,
it was fun.
And you got to play him, right? Because you play him in Death and Return of Superman, right?
That's right. Yeah. I wound up just doing a little sort of cameo in that short.
Yeah. I mean,
you know.
Sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
No, I was gonna say, you know, we were friends before, and getting to work with him was a treat, you know. And also, he's very clued into the sort of British culture, and so all the kind of cameos he got to be in Burke and Hare were, not least Christopher Lee, you know, were really fun to be part of, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel that. When you look back, I realize you must have to answer a lot of questions on this topic. But when you look back on Spaced, yeah. I mean, so what does it feel like to have been sort of riding through that hurricane for the past 20 years or so, and to have something to have produced something so impactful and so constantly referenced? What's that experience like?
It's very, very gratifying, and you know, to have it be still talked about 20 years on is the best possible validation we could ever get, you know. And it's just funny to me that, you know, a show that I literally said every odd numbered Star Trek movie is shit, and then I ended up writing Star Trek 13 or whatever it was. Just seems like manifest destiny. Yeah, I'm very proud of that show. I showed it to my daughter for the first time recently, and she's only 11, and she really responded to it. You know, every time I see her, she draws slow motion guns on me and wants to do the slow motion gunfight. So it's it's, as I say, it's the best kind of thing you can hope for as an artist, is that whatever you create remains in the public consciousness, you know, and is remembered and stays relevant. And I think for Spaced, that seems to be the case, which is lovely for Jess and I, and Nick and Edgar and everybody else, you know.
Yeah, right on. It's a lovely show. Like everybody else I know, like everyone who works at Forbidden Planet, who will see themselves in it. I'm a big fan, so you know.
Yeah. I mean, Tim was a comic shop. I'm sure we would have, you know, if we could have cleared it, we probably would have had him work at Forbidden Planet. But we had to make up our own sort of comic book shop.
Of course. So I tell you a recent movie of yours in the last couple of years that I really loved. That's not a genre flip per se, but I think it's fantastic. Is Man Up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So have you got any stories to share about working with Lake on that film, or you know how it was for you? Because I think of all the films of yours that I recommend to other people, that's the one that everybody really responds positively to. Everybody loves it.
Well, Tess Morris, who wrote it, is just like, she's like a rom-com scientist. You know, she it's her speciality. She really understands the dynamics of romantic comedy, and embraces the sort of conventions of it uncynically, knowing that you need a certain number of beats to kind of qualify for the definition. You know, the cute, the meet cute, and the sort of big gesture at the end, and all this kind of stuff. she totally gets that. And I think it was basically all in her writing. And then, you know, for Lake and I, it was just fun to kind of play it all out and just do her lines, which were joyous. It was really fun, and it was Big Talk. You know, it was kind of who then were our sort of home production company, because Nara Park was still there, and it felt like a bit of a sort of a home kind of operation, which is always nice. So yeah, it was a fun shoot.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of shoots, what was it? You played two great heroes of mine, Thompson and Thompson, in the Secret of the Unicorn. How was that? How was that? That I imagine, because I imagine you were completely mocapped up to do all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
It was really fun. Nick and I went to Giant Studios in Santa Monica, and sort of early 2009, and we did a lot of kind of movement work with a guy, Terry Notary from Cirque du Soleil, who does a lot of the ape work works with Andy Serkis a lot, actually, in the Planet of the Apes movies, and came up with this sort of physicality, this sort of dual synchronous movements and all that kind of stuff. And then just getting to work with Steven Spielberg on set is just joyous, you know, because he's such a brilliant all-round director in terms of how he relates to his actors, what he wants from his visuals. You just feel it when you're with him. You feel like you're wrapped in cotton wool. And when he comes up to you and sort of gives you a note, you're like, yeah. And it's always like the simplest, easiest thing that solves every problem. And for Nick and I as well, both of whom are kind of massive fans of his, obviously, particularly Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is a film which is very special to Nick and I. We sort of were constantly asking him questions about, you know, about what happened there and what happened on Close Encounters and what happened here and there. And we were about to make Paul that year as well, so we were able to kind of tell him about that. And I never forget, he emailed me after Paul came out, and after he'd seen Paul, and sort of said that he really enjoyed it. And he said there were so many references in it, I started to get a nervous tick. Yeah. Which I took in good humor.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun.
Oh, it must have been a glorious opportunity. So one of the things your production company with Nick is working on, Stolen Picture, is Ben Aronovich's Rivers of London. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our sister company, Titan Comics, publishes all the comics and graphic novels for Rivers of London.
Yeah.
In fact, Ben was one of the interviews I did in this sequence the other day. And I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about what attracted you to that and how that project is going, and what what it was, why Rivers of London?
Well, Nick actually picked up the book, I think, and started reading Ben's sort of, the series, and brought it to all our attention at Stolen Picture. And, we all read it, our team there, and we're like, yeah, this is great. This kind of feels like something that's quite in line with our own sort of, creative kind of sort of dynamic. It was just, it felt like it was something that Stolen Picture could do, And so we got Ben in, and we spoke to him, and he seemed amenable in terms of adapting it with us. And at the moment it's in sort of development. We're trying to figure out how to do it, what's the best way to do it, whether it's a book a series or a couple of books a series, or and that's just logistics. But we're very excited to be doing it. It's a really great story.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful marriage of genres, and he's such a smart guy as well. But he's such a great guy to speak to, and he's
really cool,
big sort of Falstaffian figure, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, and I love working with people who have who have a specific vision and are keen to hold on to it. They don't just want to sort of like farm their stuff out for adaptation. They want it to be done properly, and I totally respect that. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting moving on that and starting to cast it and make it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And it would be great. I mean, ultimately, when that all happens, it'd be great if you could come back to us and talk about it nearer the time. I know it's quite some way off.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a property that we love.
Yeah, it's a real fit.
So poking around in the ether of all your movie credits, I'll tell you a personal favourite of mine. Is the 2 episodes of Mob City you did as Hecky Nat.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
That was just I became good friends with Frank Darabont after Shaun of the Dead. Frank was another kind of supporter of ours, and we always used to go around to his place for dinner. He used to live in Ginger Rogers' old place up in the Hollywood Hills, and he put on these amazing dinners. And Edgar and I would go along, and it would be like, there'd be Greg Nicotero would be there, and Quentin Tarantino would be there, and it was like a table of just really interesting people. Winona Ryder, I remember she was there once. Different writers and producers, and me and Edgar would just be sat there at the table, sort of eating spaghetti and just loving it. Bernie Wrightson used to come along. I remember giving Bernie Wrightson, Bernie and Liz a lift home. Me and my wife gave Bernie Wrightson a lift home. That was just insane, and they were so sweet. Drew Struzan and all these really interesting people. And so, I'd had this friendship with Frank, and he after The Walking Dead happened, and there was that really unpleasant business with AMC, he decided he wanted to do this. It was originally called LA Noire, but we couldn't call it that because obviously the video game. And he just gave me a ring and said, do you want to make something? Do you want to be in something? I was like, absolutely, And he sent me Hecky, and we shot it in LA. And it was really great fun. Worked with a lot of great people, John Bernthal and Jeremy Strong and Milo Ventimiglia, and it was a real change of pace because it was a drama, and I had such fun doing it. I'm sorry that I think for TNT who owned it, it was just a little bit too big, and I think for what it was, they couldn't really afford to make the show that Frank wanted to make, so it didn't wind up going forward. But I'm proud of that show too.
Yeah, I so wish that had run to more series. One of the things I do in one of my other incarnations here is I'm big time into noir, and I edit the Mike Hammer series, which is written by Max Allan Collins. And that world, I always watching that. I always thought that John Bernthal would just be such a great Mike Hammer on screen. With that kind of venal energy that he's got, which makes him a great Punisher, of course. But he's got humour too. I really wish that had run to more seasons because it was such a great show. But it's kind of perfect in the way it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I realised, because one of the things Frank said was, look, we're going to kill you for the first episode you're in. I didn't even know if I was going to come back for those flashbacks at that point. And I was like, okay, because I wasn't really interested in getting attached to a long-running series at that point. And it felt like something that I could work with Frank and then I would have a get at. But then obviously when it started to go forward, I started to feel a little bit like, oh, I wish I'd been in this a bit more, because the universe was just so rich, and
it was.
Frank really knows his stuff when it comes to that era, and it was really rich and fascinating stuff, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, Simon, I know you're pressed for time today, so we're heading into the final few minutes. A couple of things I just wanted to ask you is, what comics are you reading now, or what books are you reading now?
I just read, my daughter is currently anime crazy, so I'm picking up quite a lot of her sort of One Punch Man and My Hero Academia and Danganronpa and all these different sort of, just tentatively looking at them. But I like the fact that she has something about which I know nothing, or very little. I just finished Max Brooks's new book, which is called Devolution. And it's a first-hand account in the same way that World War Z is of this, and I love how he does this, of the, what was it called? It's a Sasquatch massacre. So it's all about this little community called Green Loop that are up near a volcano in somewhere in the northwest part of America. And the volcano erupts, and it drives all the wildlife towards civilization. And some of that wildlife includes this community of Sasquatch. And it's all written from the point of view of a diary and interviews. So it has this incredible veracity that you read it and you start thinking, hey, this could be true. Because he's so clever at investing phantasmagoria with genuine credibility, like scientific studies and possible explanations how an upright ape might have migrated across Pangea into the northern continents. And it's just really, really fun. And I found it impossible to put down. And so I'm not sure that's out yet. He sent me a copy because we're friends, and I gave him a quote for World War Z when that came out. And but I could thoroughly recommend it it's such a fun read.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds brilliant. Have you checked out Undiscovered Country, which is
No.
that's an image book which Giuseppe Camuncoli does the art on, and the principle is that America has been walled off. Nobody's been there with all kind of all broadcasts like ceased, and nobody knows what's been going on inside America for a generation. And then a team of people go back in, and it's about how batshit crazy it's become on the inside. It's a fantastic book. You've got to check it out, mate. It's awesome.
I love it. That sounds fantastic. That sounds entirely plausible.
Yeah, it so does. Yeah, I know. It's only a natural extension from what's happening now. What are you watching at the moment? Anything you recommend?
Yeah, actually, I'm late to the table, but I just started watching The Umbrella Academy on Netflix.
Oh, so good. I interviewed Gerard about 2 days ago, actually, for this.
You did?
Yeah.
And I really, really like it. I think I kind of, early on, it had kind of been compared to The Boys in a way. And not correctly either, having watched it now, when it just felt like, oh, is this similar to The Boys? And then I think being in The Boys, briefly, I kind of had that slight fear of like, oh no, if I watch this, is it going to be better or is it going to be too similar? So I kind of didn't watch it for a while. And then when season 2 came out, and I loved the cast is great. I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna start this, and I immediately I loved it. It was fantastic. It's really fun. It feels like a Dark Horse comic, you know.
Yes,
it feels
I agree.
like it has that vibe that the comic books I started reading when I was a sort of, 18, 19, 20, back to the days of Crisis and Revolver, those old comics. The more adult, not like, some comic book fare feels like they're trying to drag an essentially childish product into the adulthood. So suddenly you make a bright, fun character, you suddenly make them all serious. And that, there's a lot of that. A lot of people think that grown-up comic books are just about making a nice, fun superhero a bit angry. And that's not really the case. You can write, adult-oriented comic books. And Dark Horse were always very good at that. And this feels like that. It's got clever conceits. It's really funny. And yeah, the cast really elevate it as well. So I'm enjoying that.
Fantastic. I agree. It's a great show. And of course, you touched upon The Boys, which has been an epic success. You, of course, are the original comic book version of Wee Huey.
Yeah.
And now you get out to become Huey's dad. How do you feel about the success of that? Because that's really blown through.
I'm really happy. I'm really pleased for everybody involved. Carl, obviously, is an old friend of mine. Jack, who plays Huey, I'm glad that he now has that mantle. I finally can sort of let it go, and people can stop saying, when are you going to play Wee Huey? Because that was starting to get tiring. But it was such a nice little touch to get in there and play Huey's dad, who is now obviously in hiding, is in witness protection. He may come back, I'm not sure. But the whole circularity of that was another joyful event in my life, I think.
Wonderful. And finally, Simon, what are you working on at the moment that you can mention briefly, if anything?
Well, we've got Truth Seekers coming out in October, which I think is I think it's October, is a kind of paranormal investigation comedy.
Yeah.
I'm writing something at the moment with Crispy and Mills, which is a big sort of event piece of TV, which I can't wait to be able to talk about. I can't yet, sadly, but as soon as it comes out, then I won't be talking about anything else.
Right,
so
great.
I'm cryptically working on that at the moment.
Oh, so please come back and talk to us about that. It'd be
Andrew,
great.
absolutely.
It'd be great to have you back on. And thanks so much for carving out half an hour to have this chat, mate. We really appreciate
my pleasure,
it.
man.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, that it has a special place in my heart, and I can see in my head that black and white advert for Forbidden Planet with a guy in a dinosaur costume crossing the road.
Yes.
Dig it out. I'm sure it exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing, Boland's got all those beautiful beautiful promo art he used to do, and it's fantastic. There's a whole sequence of it. It's really good stuff. It's really lovely. Yeah, he sent us over all the original art the other day, and it's amazing to look back on it.
That's fabulous.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that, spending the time with us. So you have been watching Forbidden Planet 42 with the titanically talented Mr. Simon Pegg. Thanks, mate. You have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Good to see you, mate. Thank you.
You too. Good luck with the rest of it.